April 5, 2022, Kingston Planning Board. And this is our first meeting of the month. We meet twice a month. We do not have any public hearings tonight. We have a bunch of board business to conduct. For the record, I'll just make sure that I introduce everybody. Board members Peter Coffin, Merrill, our new selectmen's rep is Chuck Hart. Glenn Koppelman here. To my right is Ellen Faulkner, our administrative assistant and alternate to the board. Board members Chris Bashaw, Peter Bakey, and Robin Duguay, and Glenn Greenwood. Dennis won't be with us tonight, is that right? Town engineer?
I didn't think so.
Oh, I wouldn't imagine, but I didn't know. Okay. All right, I'd like to, with the board's permission, take the items out of order because we are late. With regard to elections, we put them off so that we'd have all of our board members here. And so just before you all jump up and decide what you'd like to do, I'd like to say something first, and I'd like to make sure that everyone understands the process that we follow and that we've been following for the last couple of years. And it's outlined in our rules of procedure. And that is that we have 3 positions to fill: chair, vice chair, and rep to the Historic District Commission. We'll do the chair first, and then the others. The where was I going?
Procedure?
The procedure, that's good. So nominations can be done by an individual self-nominating or by someone nominating someone else. And we will take nominations. If there's only one, then basically it's a done deal. If there's more than one, then we vote. Take a vote and the highest vote getter gets that spot. So, anybody have any questions before I start the process? Okay. So, the piece that I would like to say before I take nominations for chair is that apparently there's been a bit of public discussion outside of this board by at least some board members here as to their displeasure with the way this board has been or is being run. And I don't think that that's the right way for that sort of thing to happen. If there's unhappiness about this board, we don't have to wait till elections before raising it as an issue and bringing it up, because changes can be made at any time. So with that, I'm going to make it easy on all of you. And I'm going to ask that you not place my name in nomination for either chair or vice chair. And with that, I will open the floor for nominations for chair.
I'll nominate Lynn Merrill.
I'll second.
Motion by Chris, second by Peter Coffin. Oh.
Yeah, we don't even need the second.
I'm sorry, we don't,
Yeah,
we already said that we didn't.
Forgot.
Yeah.
We just come to the pages. I'm just so used to it.
It's just so automatic. Are there any other nominations for chair? All right, so for formality, I'll just ask for those in favor. Please signify by something.
Do we ask if you want to?
You can if you like.
Well, there's a nomination. Would you be interested in taking that position?
If you all are willing to help out.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I only have 5 years' experience on the board, and that's not enough. It's nowhere near enough to know
Well, that's why we have a town planner. He'll, he's a helpful guy.
And I'm sure Glenn would be more than happy to
I'm sure.
provide us his insight.
No comment.
And Alan is available as also an expert in the subject matter.
Any satisfied, was that satisfactory, Peter?
I'd like you to take it.
Congratulations. And I'm going to ask you to move here and do the rest of the meeting, please.
Oh. Well, wasn't prepared for that.
Well, that's the way it works. Would you like another chair? That one's better on my back, which is why I use that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure it's,
If
as
you
long
want
as it's high enough.
the rolling ones.
Yeah, it's okay, I can sit. I'm high enough. I usually put the chairs way up. Okay. So,
Yes.
do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Chris Patrick.
Any other nominations for vice chair?
I'm going to put myself up for nominations. I think that.
Okay. All right, so that means I need to look at procedure.
We need little pieces of paper.
Do we need little pieces of paper, or is this something we do?
No, you just.
I think you just vote, right?
Just call the names.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none. Okay, let's start around the room. Peter?
I'm going to vote for myself.
Glenn?
I'll vote for Peter.
Okay. Chris?
Vote for myself.
I vote for Chris.
I'll vote for Chris. Okay, looks like it's 3-2 for Chris.
Chuck, did you vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Chuck.
Yeah, actually, the procedure.
You're here,
The
you
only
vote.
thing is that you can't be elected to one of the spots.
You need to
They
vote.
draw a poll. Sorry.
Okay.
Did Chuck vote? I didn't hear.
Yes, he did.
Am I the only guest?
You are. Welcome. All right, and I believe we also need to appoint a member for the Historic District Commission. Do we have any nominations for HDC rep?
Ask him first, but if you're having experience on the commission, are you willing to do it?
I am, unless somebody else wants it, and then they're more than happy to have it.
I'm nominating Glenn.
Okay. Any other nominations for HDC rep? See none. All those in favor of Glenn for representative to the Historic District Commission? Opposed? Peter, you voting?
I voted. Sorry, I nominated, I didn't vote.
Glenn, are you voting?
Abstain.
Okay, 16. Is this a time when we're supposed to also nominate for the CIP? Is it the CIP? Is that what we call it?
We have.
Capital improvement.
Capital Improvement Plan?
It would
Reps? Is
probably
that done
should.
at this meeting
be an
generally?
appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any volunteers to serve on the the CIP?
Robin, you're.
I'll do it since apparently I was volunteered several years and it hasn't happened yet, so.
Okay. And we need, what, 2 or 3?
Well, what do you think?
It usually ends up being at least 2. We have had 3 in the past.
You're supposed to have more than the other committees, so you're supposed to have 3.
Okay.
I'll volunteer for it again.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else?
How many meetings did that, and when do those meetings pick up?
It's in the fall, not very many meetings.
Not very many.
5 at the most.
If nobody else wants it, I'll volunteer.
Maybe Steve would want to do it.
Actually, Steve Padfield, yeah. Well, how about we place me on it, but if Steve is willing, I don't wanna volunteer him while he's not here. I know that's usually the fate of people who don't show up at something.
There you go.
But if he's willing to sit on it, I would absolutely concede that to him.
All right, so I think we have everything appointed. Is there any other thing we need to appoint anybody for?
You need to reappoint your alternates.
Oh, we need to reappoint our alternates. Do we have any nominations for alternates?
You have Steve Hadfield, and I don't
And
want
you?
to do it.
You don't want to do it? Okay. Okay.
I guess I'll
Nominate Steve Hadfield for a 3-year term as alternate to the board.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Are there any other people that we know that might want to serve?
This is a question of whether we want to do what we did last time, which was to post it.
I think we should post it, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know if anybody we should be contacting that might have expressed an interest. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Sign that.
Okay.
Sign, good luck. Where Steve signs.
So,
And that goes through March 11, 2025, because you have a 3-year term, a 2-year term, and a 1-year term. So I figured since he's been on the board, I filled it up for 3 for him.
okay.
Does that
And
sound okay?
Yeah.
Ellen, is your term up as well?
Yes.
And how many, and that's the end of a 3rd-year term for you?
Actually, mine, I could swear there was other paperwork, but I can't find it. So it looks like mine expired during COVID, like last year. But of course, I sit until someone,
yeah, until you're.
until someone
So
replaces me.
you can still serve as an alternate
I
until
can
we find a
until you have someone
replacement?
else. Yep.
Okay, that sounds good. So I do think,
So you'll have a 2-year and a 1-year to fill, because you
Okay.
do 3, 2, and 1, and all of them need to be redone.
thank you. So, strange sitting here. I do think that if anything, we really need to thank Glenn Koppelman for his, how many years, Glenn, have you been on this board?
Well, I'm still on.
I mean, till now.
Unless something happens.
No, till now.
There's a special election you weren't passed.
37.
37 years serving. So when I say, I certainly don't have the experience in the background to sit here. I have 37 years sitting over here that just always impresses me. The historic knowledge, the institutional knowledge that Glenn has is really second to none. And I think we really want to thank you so much for all of that, for serving as our chair for the last few years, and looking forward to having you with us for this coming year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, and we also need to thank Ellen for being an alternate, and please continue until we find somebody. All right? I guess first on the agenda, or second on the agenda, is correspondence. Thank you. So we have an invoice from Civil Construction Management. For Second Empire Homes for a total of $442.50. Any objections to paying this bill? Seeing none, consider it paid.
I need to initial that, just so you know. Yeah, that's good.
Good. We have a letter from to Phil Coombs. Thank you for Kingston's continued support of the Rockingham Planning Commission. The RPC is always eager to be of service to your community and the land use boards. In order for staff to continue to provide planning service to our member communities, we need your membership dues for 2022. Membership dues support our transportation and land use programs, as well as local and regional services provided to our members. Dues for Kingston this year are $6,202, which is based on the rate of $1 per capita for the first 10,000 in population. An invoice is enclosed for bookkeeping purposes. We look forward to working with you for the coming year. Once again, thank you for your support.
And looks like we dealt with it Monday.
Madam Chair, the select board pays that, and they dealt with it at their meeting last night, and they approved the invoice.
Actually, just put these back in here.
Okay, then you know where they are?
Yeah, exactly, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing we have is a construction cost estimate, performance bond information for Lewis Builders for Smallpox Road.
And when that's one that, they're splitting it now,
Yep,
so, and it was Mr. Wilson, but he sold the property, so it's now Lewis Builders.
okay.
So that's, so you know that's what that is. I think it was already signed. That's
It's all
more
signed.
informational.
Okay, so it's just, okay, we're good.
That's different.
That's
They
different.
sort of all go together, but.
Okay, for Dan Parks, a request that we refund half of his original bond on the roads Smallpox and part of New Boston, because the other half is going to be paid by Lewis Builders, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. But you might want to put that aside till you, because Dennis's report of the property is on there, so that will be a discussion. The board needs to decide on their recommendations on, because
Okay.
that's the memorandum of understanding, but right behind that is Dennis's
Report.
report about the property. It also has some
Oh, this
information.
one,
Yeah.
okay.
It also has some information from the code enforcement officer as
Okay.
well. So then it sort of all goes together.
Okay. Yesterday, I, along with Code Enforcement Officer Chester,
Chet.
Chet.
Just go with, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Zioba?
Close
Zioba?
enough.
Okay. Anybody know how to pronounce Chet's last name?
He's
Okay.
Yeah.
code enforcement.
It's like share,
Yeah,
just share.
Code Enforcement. Visited the Dan Parks property to observe the status of his pond construction. We met Mr. Parks as he was working excavating the pond. A large area of the pond on the west end has been excavated, and large piles of sand are stockpiled in the upper part of the pond area. He has a large water pump mounted on the edge of the roadway and has been pumping groundwater from the bottom of the excavated area to lower the water table in order to be able to excavate sand down to its designed depth. The discharge from the pump was directed into a culvert he had placed under the driveway, then into an excavated pit he called a settling basin in the power line easement. This basement has a narrow berm separating it from a large wetland resource area. It had a discharge pipe to allow water to flow into the wetlands. Recently, the berm failed, causing sand from the berm and sand silt from the bottom of the basin to flow into the wetland. I explained that the wetlands are regulated under the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Wetlands Bureau, and impacts like this are a violation that must be corrected and restored to original condition. Mr. Parks stated there is a beaver dam downstream, causing water level in the wetlands to be somewhat above the surface, and removal of the sand cannot be done until the dam is removed. Surface water dissipates and dries up. We recommended that Mr. Parks not continue with this process and protect the wetlands by using a filter medium like wood chip stump grindings to prevent additional sand silt from entering the wetlands. The town may consider sending a complaint form to NHDES Wetlands Bureau. This would ensure that restoration is conducted to the satisfaction of the state. I do not believe dewatering of the pond was part of the approval process. The procedure must be designed properly and be acceptable to the town. Note 16 of my plan review comments to the planning board on February 2nd, 2019 state, construction will require dewatering for excavating below the groundwater level. A detailed pumping methods plan must be provided to show location of discharge and filtering of suspended silt to minimize impact to nearby wetlands. Note 2 of the AOT permit states, you must submit revised plans for permit amendment prior to any changes in construction details or sequences. We also observed the side slopes along the area excavated below the water table have been eroding, and in some areas steeper than shown on the approved plans dated 5/12/20. A portion of Note 18 and my plan review comments to the Planning Board on February 20th, 2019 state, typical cross-sections profiles of the pond are required. Steep slopes and coarse sand are very unstable and should be flatter. For safety, there must be gradual slopes in multiple areas along the shore where wildlife or humans can easily exit the ponds if needed. Therefore, I recommend the town take appropriate action to correct these issues. See attached photos. And we have the photos, and I believe this was emailed to everybody here, so you've all seen that. Then we have a copy of the complaint enforcement request form.
I just put that there in case you needed it. And then when, this is new, so you'll see it.
Oh,
This, the code enforcement officer went out today
okay,
and took photos to show some other things.
good or bad?
Not good.
Okay.
And he also drew me a little
Map.
map, just so we know that this is his driveway.
Mhm.
Here, there were wetlands here and
Right.
stuff, but here's the wetlands, and here's where he dug the hole
Mhm.
to drain the water into, that he said this is where it's breached and it's all going into the wetlands.
Okay.
And that is also within the 100-foot wetland buffer. So he just sort of drew that out, so.
Should we pass this around?
anyone
Why don't we
wanna-
do that? So everybody has a chance to take a look.
And then we also have comments from conservation,
Everything, so-
and that's the
The state
form.
law.
So,
So while you're looking at the pictures, we did receive input from Evie Nathan from the Conservation Commission. And she states, "We were concerned about this exact scenario and addressed dewatering in our comments to the planning board in a letter of 10/10/18, requesting a review of Mr. Park's dewatering plans. This wetland complex contains an exemplary plant community, NHB. Looking back, I have an email from NHB stating that they were having an issue with Mr. Parks back in 2013. Would the town like conservation to send in the DES complaint form, or will someone who has been to the site do it?" And this is a copy of the form. So, I guess we have a little discussion.
the code enforcement officer told me today that they had a discussion with Mr. Parks and what needed to happen, and he went out today and hoped that he would see some things changed a bit. He did put rocks down. Dennis suggested that he put down wood chips or something like that, and he put down rocks. But they explained to him that he had to fix the wetlands, and that meant going in with a shovel and a bucket and do it all, and he said he hasn't done any of that. But he did add more rocks, but you can see the rocks are kind of going beyond where they probably should be.
So, yeah, so it sounds like dewatering was allowed in the notes, but it had to be a very comprehensive plan that had to be approved and reviewed before he was allowed to engage. Now, in this situation, is this where, now that we have a code enforcement officer, would they be the one to fill out the complaint? And after affirming with the planning board that it's not in compliance with what the plan outlined, or is the planning board the authority that would fill that out?
And additionally, yeah, the Conservation Commission offered to fill it out, but
Yeah.
if this is an enforcement issue, generally we make a recommendation to the select board,
Select board, right.
and they execute the.
Yeah, either from them or they could direct, because they could.
They could direct us back to
the
fill
officer
out.
on their behalf to.
In conjunction with the town engineer, you could probably fill out the paperwork and slip and sign it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But that's why I gave you the enforcement
Right.
request along with that document, so that could be attached to the board's enforcement request if that's what the board wanted to do, so. I'm going to pass that down
Yeah,
that way, and
please.
we'll-
Everybody, please.
When did they first visit the site?
April 1st, I think, is the paperwork from,
That's what
April 1st is the date of the report.
from Dennis, that's his.
Here's the little map. So this shows the driveway, it shows
They
the
went back 4
wetlands,
days later today.
this is the pond, and this is the
The
breach.
code enforcement officer yesterday too, but today he took some pictures.
So I recommend that we submit this with the engineer's report and the code enforcement officer's input, because there's obviously more than one issue here. The biggest being the breach and the damage into the wetlands. And we give the Conservation Commission an opportunity to submit.
I think that we should ask the Board of Selectmen to submit the DES paperwork and have it be a town instead of having an individual department. That's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
their code enforcement,
Should all go together.
they will do it.
Yeah, I would say we just affirm what we've seen, and then
Yeah.
the select board can solicit input from other departments if they want.
So we
before they
could
proceed.
do like a code enforcement request, attach this paperwork to it, and then ask the Board of Selectmen to follow up. Is that
Exactly.
basically?
Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Can I just ask, who had Dennis go out there? Was it the Board of Selectmen?
I have no idea. I think that Dennis was probably doing what you guys talked to him about, to follow up on some projects, and where there was the smallpox one and this one, and he was also aware that Mr. Parks had asked for his engineering bond back. So I think all those things probably prompted Dennis to go out to the site. Because he'd been there before, and things were doing okay. Because we have a previous report from him that he went out and looked at the site. I think it's just, I hadn't heard that there had been a complaint or report or anything, I think.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Had he reviewed the dewatering plan after the
I don't,
discussion?
I don't think Bum was submitted.
I don't think there was a dewatering
There
plan.
wasn't.
I think they just started dewatering without a plan.
Okay.
Right.
Right from reading the memo.
And according to the code enforcement officer, he's using a fairly large pump to pump this water in a direction. But the code enforcement officer was all over the plan, the minutes, he looked at everything so he was well aware of what Dennis was talking about, what was supposed to be happening. And, he was willing to come this evening, but I'm like, I think tonight's gonna be a boring, knock on wood, quick meeting.
So our recommendation is to pass this to the Board of Selectmen for enforcement action.
And I can fill, I'll have to do this up tonight. I can
We
fill
did
this
have quite
out.
a discussion with Dennis and the parks about not only the dewatering, because I didn't know how they would be able to dig this pond if it was like a natural fill and excavate it. But at any rate, the other factor was the slopes. We had a quite long discussion about the
That's
slopes
right.
and the safety and angle
Yeah,
of
we
the post.
had talked extensively in our last meetings about the slopes,
Yes,
extensively.
and so there was no question about
Because the first thing was they were going to be so steep that people or animals couldn't
falling
get
out,
out,
get out.
should anyone fall in.
So Lynn, just for procedure, whenever the board took is that a vote? Did we
No, we
vote
didn't
that?
take a vote. Motion to refer this to the selectmen for enforcement
I'll
action?
move to be referred to the selectmen as discussed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Unanimous.
Now, usually I fill that out myself, and sometimes, no, keep it in the minute, keep it in the minute. My question to you is, I used to sign Glenn's name and initial it, do you want to, since this is beginning?
You can just go ahead and sign
Okay.
it, initial it.
Okay.
So, then we also have his request to refund half of his original bond.
So the question on that is, do we have a guarantee that the other people are paying half of it? Which
Yeah.
we have, we do have a guarantee.
Yeah, but that's the
Yeah.
road.
That's a road bond.
That's the road bond, and they're
Road
splitting it
bond.
50/50.
So I think.
So I think, as far as the road goes, we need to wait until the town has received
The other bond.
other half of the bond.
That's all done.
That's-
Yeah,
that's
so
another
it's
thing.
two different things. I think the road bond can be reimbursed, if you get the half from the other party. So that road bond, I think would be reimbursed.
The question is, was that bond, that, I believe, specifically for the road?
It was.
And we
Yes.
didn't.
So we can't use it for mitigation of the
Wetlands.
wetlands.
Correct.
No, that would be,
And they get half from the other person, so.
So should the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen be that we recommend that half can be released pending town engineer review of the road? Or are we just gonna go with it?
No,
I don't
we'll
know.
go with it.
Just go with
because the
it.
road won't
Okay.
be in review until,
Yeah,
Oh, it's
because
done.
the remaining balance of his bond is
Still there.
to guarantee the road.
Right.
the other stuff. So.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the selectmen that it be released.
Second?
Second.
Peter Kaufman. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I guess
You need to vote. Or it's some fashion, even if it's abstaining, but
Yeah.
just because it's so
it's
much.
a seven-member board, you're a seven-member, you need to vote.
So did he, did you,
He's now voted yes.
he's voted yes, excellent.
Moving on.
You vote need to.
One abstention.
Yes.
Who abstained?
You're
You're
gonna
abstaining?
abstain.
Okay,
He's
Rob,
not
you're
familiar with the whole history.
He's gonna abstain because he's not familiar with the history.
Chuck's gonna abstain,
Correct.
Yeah.
so, okay, so it's 6-0 to 1.
So we have a request from Joe Wilson to release his escrow for Smallpox Road. Project,
Yeah, his, everything,
everything.
yeah, because,
Says he's done with everything.
and he sold it to Lewis Builders.
Okay, so he's the one that sold it to us.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. So we can return. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion?
So move, yeah, so moved.
So move, second.
As long as,
All those in favor
as
with
long as
returning
they,
Joe Wilson's
people
bond?
who know that it's been done.
Yeah, I have on there, I think I have on the paperwork,
Mhm.
that is pending review of town engineer
And-
and planner to
yeah.
make sure we have all of their.
Make sure all the invoices are in.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, before we pay it. Okay. We have a letter to the Town of Kingston Planning Board. My son Dylan Sullivan and I are in the process of purchasing Cabot Kennels, 6 Page Road, Kingston. We should be closing on the property sometime in late April or early May. Dylan will be living in the house on the property and managing the business Truly Balanced Dog Care, LLC. We do not plan to make any changes to the property or business. We will have 4 employees. Our hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday, and 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions or concerns. We're looking forward to being a part of the Kingston community. From Lori Mahoney Sullivan and Dylan Sullivan.
So what's there now? It's a dog care?
It's currently Cabot Kennels,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and it's being purchased by Truly Balanced Dog Care.
Okay, so it's,
Any further
There's no change.
No change in
The
use.
current, same number of employees currently are.
That's what they said.
Is it something that we've approved at some point in the past, or is this a
Well,
pre-existing something or other?
the only thing I have in here was when they came in asking to change it from single-family residential back to rural residential.
No, it was in 2014.
So no site plan review.
So that's all I have. But it has been a kennel on site for 40 years,
Right,
so.
Yeah.
yes, pre-existing.
so it's
Yeah.
pretty existing.
Do we think there's any further review needed? Motion?
I'm fine with it as long as it remains as it is,
Mhm.
no changes. If they were proposing changes, my position would be different.
The letter says no change.
That's correct, it says no change.
Thought it said no change.
Yeah.
So, yep.
We do not plan to make any changes to the property or business.
Perfect.
Glenn, is that a motion?
Yes.
Second?
Yes. Before we-
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Sarnia Properties would like to have their escrow released as well at 53 Church Street. I'm not sure if I'm reaching the correct person. This was to Tori. But hoping you can help out, I'm writing relative to an open escrow account for our property at 53 Church Street, better known as Carriagetown Plaza. The escrow account was initiated as part of a recent project we were undergoing in 2021. The project has since been completed and signed off on by the building inspector. I'm now trying to get the escrow closed out and release the unused funds. Escrow details are below.
Is this the project where they filled in that wedge-shaped piece to make the gym?
Yes.
Okay.
That is one, that's not, yeah.
Initial funding was $500. The account balance as of 12/31/21 was $207.91. Motion to release the funds?
Make a motion to release,
Second.
pending review that it's,
And
all counts are
Chris and
balanced.
Peter Baiki. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Oh, sorry, that was Chris, and who seconded it?
Peter Baiki.
Thank you.
Engineering report for Solar Hills and LaFave Drive. Reference to the monumentation, and I know you all received this as well by email, well in advance of the meeting. Yesterday and today, I, along with Code Enforcement Officer Chet, conducted a site visit to the above referenced project. At the direction of the town selectmen, the main purpose was to investigate whether all property bounds were installed according to the approved subdivision plans signed by Planning Board Chairman on 7/30/18. We first walked the roadway, then through the woods in search of all bounds. The following is a list of the bounds that were clearly not in place or that we were unable to find. There were 11 of those bounds. Would you like me to detail them?
No, don't read them.
Thank you. Today, we did briefly meet with Bob Pellegrino and explained what we were doing and showed him some of the bounds that were clearly not set. See attached plan with notes of our work. We also observed a full foundation recently installed on lot 13-8. There is a PVC drainage culvert at the beginning of that driveway in the right-of-way swale. I believe it may need to be lowered, since when the final gradings and pavement are in place, stormwater runoff from the driveway may flow onto the road pavement. I will check again and review with Mr. Pellegrino at a future site check.
And the code enforcement officer also included his plan and notes on
Yeah.
monumentation and,
The notes?
no, that's just, if you open up the plan, you'll see the.
Oh, the notes on the plan.
notes.
Okay.
So there was notation on that meeting on the 18th, 2018 by the board that prior to all that work, all monumentation had to be sold. It's in those minutes.
I don't know, did we check the minutes?
No, this is now a selectman issue because they're talking about phase one,
Okay.
which needed to be completed before phase two. So they're trying to have him catch up on.
Oh, so phase one doesn't have the mountain.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And I remember a discussion about this even
I'm
back
sorry.
when we did the
Yeah.
sidewalk
Yeah,
phase.
I'm sorry. I
Right,
thought
That's okay.
I thought
Yep.
second
It-
first.
yep.
Okay.
We did talk about it at the sidewalk.
I did, we talked about that Monday night, we had the same information. And just recalling how they talked about the bounds and finding a foundation there for a new house. And the thought was that he wasn't supposed to start any new projects until all the bounds were bounds were certified. So I don't know
So the observed,
how that, who had some contract for the permit for that house.
the observed bounds are in yellow, the missing bounds are in pink. So it looks like there's a few of them missing.
There's a bunch.
And in fairness to Mr. Pellegrino, he was notified by the town of the monumentation documentation that had not been provided. He went and got that documentation from his engineer, who certified with the state that all of this had been done. And then they went to double check it and found out that that wasn't the case. Or they couldn't find them and things of that nature, but I believe this is currently a selectman issue anyway, since they were the ones who told him to get all of this done prior to getting any further permits for phase two. So I'm not sure the planning board has to actually do anything. The minutes can reflect that, yes, you should do it, but I don't think that we have to write up any documentation or anything.
Is the consensus of the board that they should get the documentation in place?
I think, as Ellen said, it's
It's a selectman issue.
a selectman issue, and we should leave it at that, and selectman, you are talking to Dennis, so.
Oh, a lot of stuff to bring back to them, Chuck. And then, last but not least, we have a letter about Lone Tree Summer Camp. I guess we all got copies of that as well. Gentle people, Eagle Scout Ryan Town and his twin brother Eric Town II, Life Scout in parentheses. The principals of Lone Tree Summer Camp LLC are purchasing Lone Tree with the guidance of their father, former Scoutmaster Eric Town, and the help of their younger brother Liam, Life Scout on the way to Eagle. Our mission is to continue the Lone Tree legacy of youth development and enrichment by offering the facilities for use by all manner of groups, such as Boy Scouts of America, YMCA, youth groups, Rotary, etc., and eventually develop a town trade camp program, town being their last name, T-O-W-N-E, called Building the Leaders of Tomorrow Today, through trade skills, financial education, and personal character development. The end result will be a summer camp where we will develop youth into fine adults, drawing on much of the Boy Scout ideals I have instilled in my boys, coupled with the vocational training of which I am a staunch supporter, spreading knowledge, skills, and self-esteem among young adults. Also included in the curriculum will be financial education, along with the extracurricular activities one would want in a summer camp, sports, waterfront activities, etc. Our lender has just inquired today about licenses for the camp, although I believe that continuing the 50-year use would not require any zoning approvals, but better safe than sorry, so we're requesting something more official to satisfy the bank. Glenn suggested I bring it to meeting before applying to the other departments for a new certificate of occupancy requested by the licensing office. Please generate some sort of acknowledgement for the continuation of its use so we can get to work. We can't imagine a better fit for stewarding the Lone Tree legacy of youth development and have been working hard to see this through fruition. We appreciate your time and consideration. Respectfully, Eric Town. Manager, Lone Tree Summer Camp, LLC.
Quick question.
Mhm.
So the Boy Scout camp was a non-profit
Correct.
company,
Correct.
entity.
Mhm.
So is this a business
Mhm.
or are they gonna set it up as another non-profit?
It's an LLC.
It's a business.
It's a business.
So would that be a different use? I love
I
what
think the
they're gonna
use
do.
is the same.
I love what they're gonna do, but I'm just curious, when you go from a non-profit to a business, is there something that we have to be aware of?
I think that's more of a taxation issue, because if you look at the tax cards, they get, the nonprofit got tax exemptions.
It's gonna be a huge,
But-
tax.
so I-
go to the town of Kingston too.
I guess my initial reaction would be if they're engaging in the same use, I think the thing that just has to be proceeded with caution is the same pitfalls that Camp Lincoln came into.
Mhm.
Is that if there's gonna be any change, it can't be a carte blanche. If what it was used for before, if that starts expanding into new buildings and overnight there, then there's a whole other,
Right.
That obviously became a big issue for abutters and grandfathering and becoming a more conforming use.
Well, yeah, I think this, the difference is this camp is an overnight camp.
It is only.
Yes.
Which is convenient. I think, Camp Lincoln, MCA, and they maintain their nonprofit, and yet they are running for-profit enterprises such as weddings and things like that. And so that would have to be addressed here. If that was an add-on use, that would change the use. And as you pointed out, right now, we're talking keeping the use the same.
Yeah,
And that's what we, as a board, could act on and not, as you said,
Yeah, I think if the question they're asking for us is to affirm that if it's used in the current state that it's been used, I don't think there's any further action from the board. Just if any expanded use is going to
Will
require.
correspondence to them reflect that any
Yes.
change of use would require?
I think it absolutely should say that, any expansion of use, because they are talking about doing trades and stuff like that, so if they start bringing other stuff, that could create.
Yeah, I think it needs to be made very clear to them that, if they're taking over the site to essentially run it as it's been run, that's one thing, but anything of an expansion nature or a change of use nature needs to come back to this board.
yeah, vocational training is, it can be a number of things. And if it's just the educational aspect, it's an expansion of camping, but, really,
Yeah, and if they start having events, they had Rotary on here, if they start having events, then we have to move forward with that.
yeah.
So,
Okay, so,
is Glenn gonna be getting back to them then?
Yes, I will. I'll actually, right.
Just a second, we'll get to you.
Town. This is Mr. Town.
This is Mr. Town, welcome. Okay, would we like the letter writer to join us? Please,
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
come and sit at the end you need to sit at the end of the table. You need to give us your name and
Eric
your
Town.
address. And your address.
1 Maple Terrace in Newbury.
Thank you.
I would just point of order, do we have to be cautious that this is a public comment, or is this engaging as more of
Well, it's not a hearing.
Because it's not a hearing, because we don't have one posted.
Correct.
It's requesting information in order for us to
Make a
answer the
decision.
question, maybe clarifications of things. And yes,
Okay.
Right.
that's Newbury, Mass, not New Hampshire.
Correct, yeah.
Based on the discussion that you've heard thus far.
Yep.
Is there anything that concerns you or that you have questions about?
No, you know, my experience having raised my children there is, you know, they do craft work. They do projects on the buildings and things like that, trying to do something like what I envision with respect to the summer camp for trades certainly wouldn't be this year. You know, that's something I want to do, but not something that is going to, happen overnight. As a Boy Scout leader, I just, was disgusted with the kids who would come to me and couldn't make a sandwich and, didn't know how to change a spark plug, and I raised my kids in the trade school, as I went to the trade school as well as did my wife, and it was the best experience I ever had. As it sits now, it's, summer camp where they have a few cabins and some tent sites, and I've reached out to the YMCA to see if they want to use it for a week and whatnot. There are different groups that could use the properties, while we clean it up a little bit and get it ready to do, expand it like that. But, I'm not looking to step on toes here, the alternative is the bankruptcy court's going to take this thing like the end of this week, and then it will get put on the block and likely sold to somebody who's going to want to cut it up into house lots. And that's really, I think preserving the camp there is a great thing, so.
I think we're all in agreement with that. I think
Yeah.
in our past history with a
Yeah,
similar
I wasn't
property
aware of that,
where
yeah.
things change, so all we're
Yeah.
saying is, I'm 1,000% in favor of what you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's just that if you're gonna change anything from what it currently is, it needs to be addressed through the board.
Of course it does.
That's
I've been in real estate and construction since I could walk, so
Yeah.
I know the drill, You don't do anything without talking to people first, and, because I plan to live here for 50 years, so this is,
I think it's great, good luck.
this is like,
I'll tell you, I was pretty happy. I lived down there in that area, and seeing that letter saying, "Oh, we're going to keep it as a campus." Just
I think it's fabulous.
yeah. And I mean, I don't know, they don't really have, I don't think, any strict arrangements with anybody, but, I'd love to open it up to the community so they can come in and use the beach if they want to, things like that. If there's a way to do that doesn't,
Yeah, be careful what you do.
So that is something you need to come back for, but.
Really?
Yeah.
Because people pay now to go in and stay there and use the beach, and a day pass for a community resident would be, I don't know.
I'd check it with us first, give us the details.
Right. Yeah.
Don't want to discourage you, but
No, I know.
No, I mean, it's great. I know I personally would love to see it maintained.
yeah.
Get a copy of
It's close to what it is, but.
What's that?
Get a copy of what the town has on file of what is being done there. Because if something like that maybe isn't being done,
Yeah.
it might have not been approved.
Right.
So just make
Yeah.
sure that you know what's on that
Where would I
file.
get something like that? I mean, I've gotten all the septics, I've gotten all the,
think we-
zoning bylaw and things like that.
We should have a plot plan on that, right? Something, anything on that?
I haven't looked.
Yeah, I mean, if you,
I-
if you
The
came to
letter
the
came in
office.
Friday, I didn't see it.
We've never done a site plan.
I don't think
No,
so, because
I don't think so.
that was here before the town.
But if there's a problem.
Pretty much.
So all that we might have is the information that's in the property file in the selectman's office.
Well, I've got tons of plans, because there was a conservation easement done there that
Yeah, my son went there.
removed 2/3 of the land from use, type of thing, so,
Yeah.
there is plans that you could have if you want those. I would imagine the first, I'm sorry. I would imagine the first step is, getting together with building inspector, board of health, all that stuff. I've got to bring everybody through the place so they can see what's there and tell me if they want anything updated.
Well, yeah, because you're gonna need a certificate of occupancy.
Sure.
Which means that all the various inspectors will need
Yep.
to check it out, make sure life safety codes are
all.
Right,
So,
exactly, yep.
I was gonna suggest that, if we don't have anything on file, that we ought to create at least a baseline so that we know if there are changes in the future, and if you have something that you can provide to the town that shows what's there now.
Sure.
That would be helpful. If you don't, it might be worth someone from town doing a site visit and an evaluation and doing some sort of documentation.
Reconnaissance, absolutely, yeah, certainly.
I would think that Lone Tree Boy Scout Council, whatever it's called, would have something that showed the kind of activities and
Well, I would
programs.
probably copy everything off of the website that is, while it still exists.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that outlines a lot of the activities that it's obviously been engaging in for a number of years, including, because I know there's the stuff about like getting access through there, about renting it out for, organizations like the Scouts and other stuff like that, so you may wanna preserve that before it's gone.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much and welcome to town.
So what can I get that will say this is
Well,
in some minimal fashion grandfather?
you say you need a certificate of occupancy?
Well, they want a certificate of occupancy, but I don't believe I can apply until I own it. But I can't, the bank won't give me the mortgage.
You need something that says it's okay.
It's grandfathered.
to use there.
Okay.
Yes.
And Glenn, our town planner, is gonna write you a letter to that.
Okay. Cool beans.
With enough.
Yeah, put all the restrictions you want in it, I don't care if
As
it's,
soon as the board
With enough
votes,
support in the letter.
no further action is required based on you doing blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
The minutes are gonna reflect that anyway,
yeah,
but, which will be helpful for the bank. And until we have that in the minutes, I'm saying this aloud so everybody knows.
yeah, sure.
The inspectors aren't gonna do anything until we've
Right,
done that.
right, yeah, I was told I had to come here first.
Yeah, and then once we do that, we let the inspectors know that the board didn't need anything else.
Yep.
And if you can get a letter from whoever owns it now, the bank, whatever, that you have permission to move forward on their behalf to try and get these things, you don't have to own it yet, they'll be able to work with you, usually. As long as there's something from who does own it, giving you permission to
Speak on
get
their
those
behalf.
kind of things.
I'm confused.
I think he's not going to do any work on the property until he owns
No,
it.
no, but if he wants a certificate of occupancy,
Right.
he was saying he can't do it until he owns it.
Correct.
If you have something from the,
I don't need the certificate of occupancy for the bank, I need something that
Oh.
says it's grandfathered.
oh, okay.
Yeah, right, okay, that's, yeah.
Do we need a
Awesome.
motion on that?
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay, I'll make oh, go for it.
Just to say, you don't own it just yet.
Right.
I am poised to close. This question arose last week. I'm like, guys, why didn't you ask me 2 months ago when I
In
could have got...
anticipation of closing.
Yeah, and they've had a bankruptcy deadline that's been keep pushing back and back and back. And so, now it's supposedly the end of the week, so it's timely on my end.
You need the letter pretty quick.
Yeah.
I do.
I told Mr. Town that I would get it to him so that he has it first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, hang on.
Oops.
I didn't mean to pressure you.
Oh, no, that works fine. That works fine.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But,
Huh?
No pressure, but
Oh, this has been brutal. You have no idea. I've been working on this thing for 4 months. I've got like 20 grand into it already, and it could disappear tomorrow if the bankruptcy court just did that. So,
So, Chris?
I'll make a motion that no further action is needed based on the information provided to us in the letter, with the intended use to continue as has traditionally been done, with no changes to that use.
right.
and
Second.
for this to be,
Sorry.
go ahead, seconded, Nick. So, Friendly
Friendly
amendment to be documented in a letter from the town planner to Mr. Town.
I agree.
So seconded.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next
Good
week.
luck.
Let me be that guy that keeps showing up in the office going, what? Huh?
Okay. Next on the agenda is the review of the proposed aquifer maps.
Those were
They got sent out to you as a result of comments that Peter had made to me when Dana presented it the first time. I gave her copies of our tax maps.
Yeah.
And she redigitized the property so that they would be reflected properly. And those got emailed out to everyone a couple weeks ago, I think.
Okay.
So this is all basically
I feel like
a big copy
I'll
and
speak for
covering.
myself, but as with the last time, I'll defer to people
I had mailed these out to everybody, so I really just made the one copy because there's so many pages of it. But maybe Glenn said, Glenn just
I think it's
suggested that maybe
self-explanatory.
you talk about what change was from the last time to this time or whatever.
It really was honestly just Peter's properties.
Yep.
And they've been changed to be reflected how they are on our tax maps.
Do we need a vote to accept it?
Thank goodness you were here.
What do you think we're,
I think we need a,
yeah, vote?
vote.
Good. We have a motion.
So moved. Motion to accept.
Second.
Since you accept the maps, yes, I'll second
To accept the revised Aquifer maps.
Yes.
that. Yes.
They look,
Yep.
they're.
Boy, they're much more specific.
Oh,
Yeah.
Chris,
Much
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And these will be available to applicants at the large version, and they will be posted online or something?
Hopefully.
Yeah, she's gonna send us all this, she's gonna make copies of them and have them covered in a Mylar for big copies for a couple of different places, and then some
Right.
small ones, so we'll be able to have them posted. And then this will now be added to the Aquifer ordinance, and this will be the new maps added to the Aquifer ordinance with, you know, all of them, so people will.
So the electronic versions will be, when you scan the ordinance, it'll come across the electronic version of these maps, so you can
Yep.
expand it. Or you get to,
Okay.
Yeah, and like the inspectors will be able to have it on their iPads or whatever.
yeah.
When they get, you know, when that project moves forward.
And it's not on the agenda, but I do believe we have to accept some minutes.
Yes, we have a couple of them.
Couple of sets. I
Yeah,
believe.
I only put one on, but when I posted, I hadn't done the minutes yet to know that there were several,
Okay.
so.
So I think we need to do
February,
15th.
there's a first one.
I sent that out.
Yeah, February 15th. Are there any changes? Any motion to accept?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Looking at the 16th, because I know there was something on the 16th. Did I email you something on the 16th, Ellen?
You did a
I was-
typo or some such thing at the bottom of one of the pages.
Yes, so you got it. There was just a minor typographical error on the March 15th meetings minutes. So-
Thank you, folks.
Twice or something.
Yeah, Ellen had used the same word twice, so she's now deleted it, so we're all set.
What was the date on March 15th?
Yeah, March 15th.
Have we already done this February 1st minutes? Because there were
No,
some.
there was 3 sets.
Oh, 3
There were
cents?
3 sets, March 15th, I don't know if you wanted to do those yet. February 1st, I'll move that we accept as written.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Do you want to hold March 15th till next meeting?
Yeah, and that way I can
Because
double
that
check.
follows our tradition of.
Yeah, and that way I can
doing them
double
on the
check
same
to make
day.
sure.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and we just got those.
We're good then. Any other business to come before the meeting? Okay. Chris?
I would just, if we could ask our selectmen's representative, I don't know if anything's been sent out to the town, if they haven't formalized the code enforcement officer's role and policy and procedure, could we request that the selectmen kind of put out guidance of how they anticipate that coming into the flow of the different boards, and how, like, if it's, are they gonna give them direction to send back to us and then expect us to give input for enforcement, or can we request, are they expecting us to request enforcement action? I'm really curious to see what the town's idea of it, so that we don't step on each other's toes as far as procedure of that.
Good thought.
Holy crap, it's brilliant, because it's exactly what I was going to ask.
Oh, really?
Brilliant, we started at the same time. Because I had a resident come in and tell me that he received a letter from Chet,
Yeah.
certified, saying that he was doing an illegal business and that there's a code enforcement action that's gonna be taken on him, and he was told to come to the planning board. So I told the person that what he's doing requires site plan review. He can't get a plan in before the end of the week after next, so he's not gonna be on for May. That means he's not getting here before June, and I'm assuming, I told him that the town's perspective is that he not do any more activity at that site. But I guess I wanna make sure I understand what the code enforcement program is. So Chris, you're brilliant. You're brilliant.
What property is that?
It's 15 New Boston Road, and he's doing auto repair
Oh,
out of his home apparently.
Oh, I believe that has, I think that's been ongoing with the Board of Selectmen.
Because I didn't hear anything about it until he was told to come see me on Monday.
I
So
think.
you in reality should be getting, like, if that letter goes out, in this particular case, you should be getting a copy of that as it goes out, in case whether it comes back to you, or you just get it and say, hey, you gotta go back.
That would
to
be
select-
really helpful.
And that's what.
That would be
what
really
all
helpful.
departments, I mean, if it's, if it's a fire alarm issue, then everybody should get relevant copies to those letters to them.
Yeah, and I just think that, with the code enforcement thing, since it's new to the town, it should be outlined what people can expect. I mean, are they gonna accept anonymous complaints? Will they only take written statements? Will they take verbal complaints? Is it gonna be investigated only by authorization of different boards of the Board of Selectmen? Like, who sets the ball in motion, and what's the consistent course of action that's gonna be laid out and followed?
And I don't know what they finalized, but I know that the Board of Selectmen did come to the planning board asking for our request for enforcement paperwork, so they could start to get that going for other departments too, so that departments aren't just calling and giving an email saying, hey, we have a problem, it's gonna be, you have to fill this out, so we
Yeah,
know.
so you have
So
everything-
I know
have
that
everything you need.
it appears that they are starting
Okay.
to work that kind of thing out, I don't know where it stands now, but they did ask us
Yeah.
for that.
So I didn't know, I didn't want to tell this person something incorrect, but I think I sent him away feeling like his business has just been completely shut down. And that's the only response I can give. If I'm being told that there's a code enforcement action that's being taken, and because there's an action out there that doesn't have site plan approval, that's the only answer I'm gonna be able to give. If the Board of Selectmen want to be in some sort of understanding or agreement with him that he can continue to do that until the process goes through, that's all in your hands, not in ours.
Because there's only one answer you can give him.
Yeah.
There's only one, and he was mortified that that was my answer.
Well,
Oh, that's the procedure. I mean,
It is
that's why he was sent to you, is to
It's
find out
the,
how
it's
to
the
get.
procedure. I told him he needs to engage a surveyor or an engineer to prepare a site plan, and that is not gonna be a quick process.
And so that, I mean, in reality, with the letter that he sent out, and of course, obviously after visiting the place, he probably should have had a little bit more information in there to either check with you, or if he knows what to say, you don't have a site plan on file, obviously that's what you need to do to continue on.
Yeah, but Chet and I are meeting on Thursday, and I'm gonna ask him about this whole,
Yeah, just so,
how many letters maybe he sent out. So, to see if every afternoon I'm gonna have people coming in
he's got a few.
selling them things.
It was my understanding that any letter that he's sending out, now they may have changed it, the Board of Selectmen had to review it first, so that they were aware of, well, it's not like he's just downstairs saying, let me send 43 people these letters. And I have a feeling that that one has been an ongoing one, that the Board of Selectmen have been pursuing.
When I asked Chet about this one, just briefly at our MS4 meeting, he said it was something the selectmen have been concerned about, and was one of the hot spots when Richard drove around town.
Yeah, I believe that that's been an ongoing.
But I've never heard of it before. Huh?
I think that might have been one that went before. I'm not sure, because I know there's something on that road and around that address, so I don't wanna say it was definitely that one, but I know it was in that location.
So it was very surprising to me.
But as far as this board's concerned, all you have to do is give him procedures for how to apply for.
Correct. And that's,
everything
that
else
was
is
done.
done.
I've given him the deadline dates and the meeting dates and what's expected of him. And
I happened to drive down that road and saw that business there and the extent of it a couple weeks ago, and I was just astounded.
apparently there's a lot in the yard.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that it's going to be important. We have inspectors meetings, but we don't necessarily, now that he's up and running and stuff, there should be a time where you get the letters and you and he probably talk a little bit.
I think that would be nice.
I think that would be important.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
At least get a copy of the letter if it goes out and it pertains to the planning board. We should vote.
because there has to be a way that Chet needs to know what he's told them,
Mhm.
and we haven't worked that out yet.
You're on page 2 yet, Chuck?
Jeez. Backside of one.
You love this.
Any other business to come before the board?
Lucky son of a gun.
Not officially, but do we have any updates on conditional approvals that we've done? You know, sort of the status of projects, like, I think we can saddle up, which we're getting towards nice weather, and I was hoping that they'd get out there.
They have been given a notice of decision, and I believe they're working on those elements that they have to do.
The last that I was told was that the finance officer spoke to one of the principals about putting up the bond, and she was told that they don't have that kind of money. So, other than that, that's all.
Letter of credit, maybe?
Okay.
That we have that. Oh, well, sorry, I just,
Well, while we're on that subject, any news on how close we are to 266 Route
yeah,
125?
that's not the next one.
No.
No, but the AOT came through, so.
Yes. And we extended their conditional use
Yep.
approval, but no,
So there are still outstanding items?
they're still outstanding on their DOT permits.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that was about the.
I've seen a lot, there's been a lot of back and forth between Division 6 and Heather Montecup. I always want to call her Buttercup, which is so wrong.
Isn't there a new real estate channel?
She's the engineer she's the transportation engineer.
Yes, but I think that's what
Was
she
she a
says.
Princess
It's
Bride?
That's SLF, not the big project part.
But it hasn't been finalized.
Just curious.
All one was split into different sectors. SLS is still kind of carved out of
Are you guys saying anything I need to put in the minutes?
No, we
Okay.
just go, you know.
I haven't heard you. What?
Anything else? So seeing that, I don't know if any of you watched the selectmen's meeting last night. I know I did. And
I did.
I was there.
I came in just late enough to miss whatever it was that you were apologizing for.
so I think when we had Zoom meetings and we were doing 266, everything was very well under control. I had control of what was going on. Everything was very well under control. Last night's meeting got a little out of control. We have a couple of, we possibly have a couple of large controversial projects or projects of concern to the public coming forth in the next year. And obviously it will be here. Just wondered if we could maybe talk about how we might want to keep things perfectly in control. One of the things that came to my mind was if we're going to have a big meeting like that, I don't think there was anything better about those Zoom meetings than having everything shared, all the plans and everything shared, so everybody was following along as the engineer or the applicant was presenting. I think that helped everybody understand and get on the same page. So one of my thoughts was if we're going to have a meeting that is of concern, where we expect to have an audience that's large enough, maybe we should ask that the applicant bring a projector and use the screen just to make sure that everybody's understanding what they're doing to help stop some questions back and forth. So you might want to think about that. And because obviously if it's a big project, it's going to be a big enough company to have the projector and just have them set it up and do that and have, you know, the laser.
It sounds like a backdoor way of trying to get what you've been trying to get for the last decade. I thought we
Now we're getting the applicants talking about it.
Well,
Well, then,
but I, you know, just saying, we can't do it for every meeting, we don't have the town facilities and that sort of thing in place, but at least for these huge projects that come in, that require multi-pages, it's hard for people in the audience to have copies of the plan and to follow along and to know what's going on. You put it in an easel, you either show it to us or you show it to them, but you can't show it to everybody, and it's too far away for them to see. So my thought,
that screen is beautiful.
and they've got a big screen up there, everybody can look and see and follow along with the laser pointer and just
Does it
thought
make
that,
sense just moving forward to say if whoever the applicant is, even if there's nobody in the audience, if people would prefer to bring their own technology and use the screen,
yeah, what?
So don't forget the plugs, we need plugs.
yeah, that's an option for everybody.
We're just saying, I think it should be an option. So I wanted to discuss that. The second thing was, there was a lot of back and forth and arguing back and forth at last night's meeting, which Glenn has done a great job of preventing some of that from happening. And my thought was, again, if we're going to have a big meeting, you know, the room's full with a lot of abutters and people that are interested, having them line up at the mic, speak at the mic. When they finish speaking, don't answer their question. Let them speak, thank them for their comments, and we'll take it into consideration, go on to the next one and the next one, and then, when everybody's finished talking, allow the applicant, then we might have questions, and then allow the applicant to answer everything at once, so that they're not repeating again and again and again, and it's not this person asking that and then trying to get into an argument and trying to dispute.
Well, and one of the things that happened last night was that, I mean, there were a number of things that happened at that meeting, but one of the things that really caused it to lose control was the fact that questions were not being addressed to the chair.
Correct.
Which is where you're going.
Yeah.
And that's so important to keeping control on a meeting like that. When you start getting, you know, individuals questioning and discussing and taking it away from
Back and forth.
away from the chair, then you've lost it at that point.
Exactly.
And I think Kevin was the chair last night, so
He was.
rather than Rick, so that some of that is
Yeah.
not running a lot of meetings a lot of times.
I'll bring my gavel.
No, but I do think one of the things that Glenn has done consistently is to sort of describe the process for everybody.
Yes.
So everyone has the same understanding of what the expectation is during the public comment period, at what point the board will and won't engage with an applicant or the public. And similarly, you know, redirecting everything back to the chair. And I feel like that's been hugely helpful in avoiding, because we've had, even without Zoom, there have been times where it's like, oh, this has the potential to go awry, and
Yep.
I think just restating, this is the process.
Yep. Glenn has done a very good job of that.
And sometimes, you know, to the board, it probably sounds very repetitive because, oh my God, here we go, he's gonna say this whole process again. But, you know, we get people who come in here just
First
once.
meeting. Yeah.
And, you know, if they don't know what the process is, it really does set us up for
Exactly.
terrible failure.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I think we can learn from other things, and that was certainly something I learned last night, and you might want to think about it as something we can talk about if this does decide to happen, one of these big projects does come in, maybe we can talk about how we're going to address it just before.
Because you can set up timelines, you can,
Yeah.
Exactly. You got 2 minutes, not 15 minutes, or whatever.
Yeah.
A reasonable time is depending on the project.
Exactly.
And then that's where the chairman can control.
Because if you've got 50 people in the room and they all want to talk,
Yeah, it's not gonna be 15 minutes each.
we're going to be past our deadline time,
That's right.
and that's not going to be fair to anybody.
Do we prescribe a timeline for comment?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
that's what they do, don't they?
Yeah.
That's what they do. I thought the ZBA did. You have a time, once they have a lot of time.
I feel like we've been very generous, I guess,
Yeah.
like particularly during the
Mm-hmm.
the 125 discussion on Zoom, it was, you know, some people were just rambling on and thinking, maybe we should give a time limit.
Should be a time limit for comment.
Yeah, and we can.
We can decide to have them go longer if they needed to present proper materials and new information and that sort of thing.
Yeah, if they're providing technical
They could
information.
request
about-
an extension of their comment period.
Yeah, we can go back and let everybody have a chance to talk.
But that's where the chair, if the person starts repeating, can rehearse out
Yeah.
the way I would.
But-
That you can say, is there anything new that you'd like to add?
Correct.
And that actually is what Ellie Lesia often does, is in meetings, she said, anybody with new information, you know, instead of just saying, having the same people come up with comments.
And I know we did that, well, I should say Glenn did that during the public comment to say we'll entertain new content.
Yeah,
But I'm talking about just the same individual who would, I mean, it's
yeah,
like,
that's what happened last night, was this one individual who didn't get.
Yeah, I think it's tough too because usually, especially if it's in a butter, if it's one of these big controversial projects, I think you have to be cognizant because some people want to feel, even if they're repeating information, I think a lot of times they want you to know that, well, we have a number of people that are affirming this, so you don't necessarily want to shut them down, but I can definitely, some of those projects, you definitely want to do the time limits and I guess I just don't know, are we procedurally, if we offer different time limits on different size projects, does that become problematic for us because, or can we gauge it based on how much audience input and things that we may have? We can say, based on the crowds we have tonight, we are setting a 5-minute
Yeah.
time limit, whereas based on the
Yeah.
crowds this evening, and obviously the amount of people that want
Yeah.
to speak, we're gonna limit it to 3 minutes.
I don't think people understand, it was like the example you gave, which was that people who want to weigh in and say, not necessarily repeat the first person's speech, but they can, you can just ask them if we'd like to speak to, in favor or against this proposal, can you just state briefly that's your intention, and if you have anything new to add it, but otherwise just briefly just weigh in.
Yeah. And we get some people that do that, they'll say, it's already been stated here, but I agree with these folks right here that I am not in support of this, or I am in support of this.
I also feel like if we have a stop time, which we do now,
Yeah.
you can sort of back into that and say.
Well, that's what I like what Chris was saying, it's like, there's a large group of people here, we wanna hear from everybody, so we wanna set a time limit, so anyone who wants to be heard can be heard, but you also have to be, you know, careful, because it's a public hearing, and your public's supposed to be able to be heard by you, so you don't wanna discourage people, but you don't want them just jabbering on.
Yeah, because it's
Over and
it's
over.
not necessarily just an open public comment section where like,
exactly.
because like, you know, when we go to the school board meetings, they have a public comment, but some of their items are necessarily a public hearing. They're a public meeting,
Well,
open,
that's it,
open
which is
to,
what
open
we're
to
having
listen,
now.
not necessarily participate in
right.
every avenue.
But most of the things for applications are public hearings.
Correct.
But I like what you're saying with the, okay, because everybody can look and see how many people are there.
Yeah.
And say, because of this, we want to hear from everybody, we're gonna limit comments, at least initially, maybe nobody will stand up and speak.
But
It's-
yeah, you know,
I
if it's,
think that
if it's a
makes
project
sense.
that only has 3 abutters, but this is a very emotional thing for them,
Sure.
you know, you don't want to say, give me your 2 minutes and move along. Like,
Yeah.
I think those are times where, you know, you'd allow for a further expansion because it may self-resolve a lot of concerns and issues if they're able to talk through it and address it.
I mean, and one of the things that they do in Concord at the State House with committee meetings is they have a signage sheet at the front where you sign your name and your address.
Oh, yeah. so
And,
I mean,
and
for-
then you can just say, check for, against, want to speak.
Yeah.
And then you just go through the list, and you can go through the speakers, and then and then you can just say, okay, you know, Bob Smith from such and such street is opposed, and just go through the list like that as well.
And lately, because you can still sign in remotely you can sign in remotely
Yes.
for and against bills. So right now you have legislation, you go up to testify, and it's like, we have 287 people that have signed in for this.
Yeah, it's getting big, but I mean, I don't think we need to get to that
No.
extent, but, you know, you got 200 people out here, we might. But again, I mean, even with the Zoom meetings, I don't think we ever had more than 50 or 60 on at a time.
So is that, I guess, is that something we should maybe look at memorializing in our regulations, saying that the board has based on the size and scope of a project and the number of attendees, the chairperson can, chairperson is authorized to designate a time limit for speakers, and I don't know if it's in there.
It's, not.
Did you just get a copy of those?
You did.
Yeah, but I don't think we got that.
I can put it on the agenda for the next business meeting in May if you want me to.
I don't think anything's gonna happen before that.
Oh, well, people could come in with suggestions or thoughts, or if you want to.
Yeah, I would like it to state somewhere that it's, that, you know, under our rules and regulations, we're granted the authority to do that, so if the first project comes in and then we set time limits, I don't want people saying, oh, you know, this is,
Yeah.
this is a conspiracy to prevent us from
Yeah.
speaking on this
You're a
topic.
favor, or you're opposed to
Yeah.
it, depends on, you
Oh.
know.
And of course, we want to change, one of the things that I saw in the minutes of the last meeting that I did not attend, where I think Peter Bakey had objected to 12.5, the word interrogation.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was a really good call.
I just thought it was kind of weird how they interrogate, somebody seemed to be interrogated.
Earlier scope.
Interrogatory.
Well, yeah, so one of the things we might want to change that to, I know Glenn Greenwood had the suggestion of changing that to discussion.
Or questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, there doesn't appear to be anything
No.
right now that talks about time limits or anything.
Can I, while we're on the rules of procedure, sorry to skip
No.
away from. Should we also nominate a secretary?
Ellen acts as the secretary, right? Oh, are we supposed to?
Where's that?
I don't know the board ever having a board secretary.
Yeah.
Because we have an administrative.
Yeah,
we
a long time ago, when these first came in, there was not a paid position for secretary, and someone was, I mean, some of the parts of this, like interrogation, are very old.
Okay.
It's been here a long time, but you may want to remove that.
I don't see secretary in. Do
I might have an old copy, it was
I? On the new copy, I don't see.
2015.
This is updated 8/17/2021.
All I see is chair.
Chair, vice, alternates.
Vice chair.
Did you give this to Robin?
Sorry.
Looks like you're gonna do one too.
You know what? You're consistent.
Consistently
You're,
outdated.
well,
It's terrible. How is that possible?
How can you be consistently out of the loop so much?
It's terrible.
Put a big X through the front page.
So yeah, so maybe if we could, just before that meeting, maybe we could put it on the agenda to.
Yeah, I'll add it to the May agenda.
Craft some language that allows flexibility in that.
That sounds good. Any other business to come before the meeting? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Chuck, you gonna say?
We are adjourned.